Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we're going to be talking about all of the players that we all should be keeping an eye on for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Week 1 matchup versus the Dallas Cowboys. But I am not alone in this video today. Joining me from the Cannon Fire podcast, you know him, you love him, it's Evan. Evan, how you doing today, man?
Doing very good. Thank you for letting me on.
Of course, man. Again, thank you for being here. For everybody who's just tuning in here, go ahead and if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. Hit the like button if you do enjoy these types of videos, and leave which players you're going to be keeping an eye on down in the comments section down below, where I will also have a link to the Cannon Fire podcast where you should go subscribe to them. We're trying to get them to 3,000 subscribers. But Evan, let's not waste any more time here. Let's go ahead and dive in to some of these players that I think we should all be keeping an eye on. The first is a little bit of a cheat here. Okay, I've kind of bent the rules a little bit. It's a group of guys, right? And it is the three top cornerbacks for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, them being Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy-Bunting, and Jamel Dean. And I talked about this earlier on in the week whenever we talked about matchups to watch. The Cowboys wide receiver trio, right? Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. Those are three very good wide receivers, all in their own different types of ways. One of the best wide receiver trios in the NFL. I don't think that is, too crazy to say. So these three cornerbacks for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers certainly have their work cut out for them. What do you think about these three guys, going into this upcoming game for the Bucs versus the Cowboys?
Yeah, I mean this particular matchup has two of, I think when you're talking about wide receiver trios, you think of Tampa Bay and you think of Dallas. Dallas's group is. I know some people think Dallas' group is better. We're a little bit biased here, so I'm going to say Tampa Bay's group is better. But that doesn't mean that Dallas's group is no slouch, because trust me, all three of those guys are productive players, and this is not the great time for the secondary to have this. You don't want this coming right out of the gate, right? There's no warm up. It's a tough opponent with a lot of weapons right away, so it's going to be important to see how those guys really match up. And I'm looking at Carlton Davis in particular because his matchup with Amari Cooper, if you were to just match wide receiver one on cornerback one, it's not a great matchup for Carlton Davis. Cooper is a more twitchy, quick receiver, which Davis normally struggles with. We saw when he tried to do him one-on-one with Tyreek Hill with no safety help. Guys like Michael Thomas, though, that are still gifted, but aren't as twitchy, aren't as quick. Those types of guys are better suited for him. So maybe you put Carlton Davis against a guy like CeeDee Lamb and see if Jamel Dean or Sean Murphy-Bunting can fare against Amari Cooper. That would be my game plan, particularly for that matchup. It'll be interesting to see what they do, but I think you could be seeing a high-scoring game, and if you do, that means that the secondary could possibly be struggling.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I almost put this in the matchups to watch, video, but I opted for the Bucs wide receiver trio versus the Cowboys wide receiver trio. I talked about it in that video. The Buccaneers have two future Hall of Famers in their trio. Again, not to say that the Cowboys trio isn't, they're not bad. They're really, really good. So I agree with a lot of what you said there. It's going to be interesting because Carlton Davis, hey, here on the channel, he's still the hashtag number one corner. And to be that type of guy, you've got to go up against number ones. That's kind of what it is to be a number one corner, kind of be that lockdown guy that Carlton Davis wants himself to be. So I think he, in terms of having difficult matchups and whatnot, maybe the coaching staff just says, okay, Carlton, prove it. Prove, what you can do here, man. So, in my opinion, I kind of see like Carlton Davis just going up against Amari Cooper. Let's just see what happens with that. Maybe Jamel Dean goes up against, say, a CeeDee Lamb, and maybe Sean Murphy-Bunting goes up against a Michael Gallup. Something along those lines. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. But like you said, this is a tough first game for these guys, right? Just point blank it is. So we'll see how they do. They've dubbed themselves the Gravediggers, right? A nickname, I'm a little iffy on, to be completely honest. But, they've put a lot of high expectations on themselves, this secondary. So this is going to be their first test. And you know what? I think it's a big test for sure, but it's going to be a good way to just throw these guys into the season, right? I think that is a safe thing to say. So let's see how they do against what is a good group of wide receivers that the Cowboys have. The next player I have us all needing to keep an eye on, Evan, is a guy who, he's been here, right? He's been here. He's done great things. He is, a Hall of Famer. It's Rob Gronkowski. And the reason I have him on this list is because he's come out recently and he has said, look, I feel great. I feel so much better than what I felt last year. I feel ready to go. And people have mentioned this. Rob Gronkowski, he's lost a step. Rob Gronkowski, injury problems, all these other different types of things. But he's coming out and saying, hey, I'm healthy. I feel great. I'm ready to go. What do you think about Rob Gronkowski coming in here, feeling fresh, feeling healthier now?
Well, I think you could tell last season that he wasn't really himself the first 5-ish weeks or so, because I mean, you got to think this dude wasn't even playing football. Like, this time last year, he hadn't even played an NFL game yet. In over a year, there hadn't been a preseason. So, I mean, this year, it's got to be. He has an entire year under his belt now. He has an entire offseason. He has an entire preseason. So that's got to be attributed to why he feels so good. And he played all 16 games last year. It's not like he missed any time. So, yeah, of course, him feeling good is definitely awesome to see. And for a guy like him who's dealt with some injuries in the past, for him to say that he's feeling good is definitely a positive sign. The Cowboys defense is nothing to write home about. So I think Brady could be looking for Gronkowski early and often. Obviously, Gronkowski is going to be up against a lot of linebackers and safeties. The Cowboys linebacking core is talented, but pretty much inconsistent. They also have a rookie there at Micah Parsons. So maybe you take advantage of that matchup. And as far as their safety play, they just don't really have the horses. So maybe Gronkowski, a completely healthy and energized Gronkowski. We saw what he did near the end of the season. Maybe he's a guy who really makes a difference in this one.
Man, that TB12 method I think's been helping him out, right? I agree with what you said. He shook basically all of that rust off last season, right? And now he's had a full off season with the Buccaneers, with the training camp, with a preseason. It does make sense why he is feeling more ready, right? And I've kind of thought about it a lot, and honestly, this could be, I don't want to say like a bounce back year, because, in all honesty, Rob Gronkowski did good last year. I think all things considered, given the circumstances, I think he did good last year. But we could see an even better form of Rob Gronkowski than what we saw last year. Maybe not say like prime Rob Gronkowski or anything like that, but I do think he will have an improvement in his numbers when compared to last year. Even with O.J. Howard being there and, getting some of those targets thrown his way as well. A healthy Rob Gronkowski, look, if there's anybody who's going to know that, it's going to be Tom Brady, right? And he's going to take advantage of that. He has been arguably his favorite target ever in Tom Brady's career. I don't think that's like a super crazy thing to say, if not say like top 3. So yeah, let's just see the magic work with those guys, especially in the red zone. I mean, come on now, right? That's just, it writes itself. So a healthy Rob Gronkowski is a dangerous thing if he's anywhere close to what he was in his prime, which in my opinion, I have a feeling we will start to see that now that he is, 100% ready to go. But the next player that I have us all needing to keep an eye on, Evan, is going to be another guy who is presumed to be a favored target of Tom Brady throughout this regular season. It's Giovanni Bernard, who, in the preseason didn't look great. He didn't get a ton of opportunities, right? But he did have one dropped pass. I believe it was in the third preseason game, but he still had a really good offseason with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, leading up to this first regular season game here. What do you think Giovanni Bernard's going to do here in week 1?
Well, I think as far as week 1 goes, I'm not sure how much I think you'll see him on the field a lot. I think he's literally going to be exclusively like their third down guy. I think unless it's a 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2 situation, like if it's 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, I think you're going to see him out there. I don't think they trust Ronald Jones or Leonard Fournette's hands, and I think they know Tom Brady likes to throw the running back. So Giovanni Bernard, while he didn't have the best preseason, he's still one of the most reliable pass catchers in the NFL. And I wouldn't really expect him to really lose that. Like he didn't show, enough signs of regression that like, oh, are we concerned that he might not be this guy? I think he'll be fine. Obviously, he was dealing with that little ankle issue. It seems like that's all good to go. He was a full go in practice today. So sounds like he's going to be 100% fine. I think you're going to see him good bit. I don't know if you'll see him targeted as much. It's all about getting those matchups with the linebackers. The tough thing for him in this matchup is while those linebackers that I talked about would have trouble with a big guy like Gronkowski, those linebackers like Jalen Smith and Micah Parsons and Leighton Vander Esch, those guys are very athletic, which wouldn't be great for a guy like Giovanni Bernard, who's a bit smaller, and is going to use his speed to try and beat those guys. Whereas that might not work, right? If they're athletic guys, like Jalen Smith can certainly run with him. So we'll see how much he's actually targeted. But I think as far as just seeing him out there, I think you're definitely going to see him out there, whether it's a pass catching situation or a pass blocking situation. You'll definitely see him out there.
Yeah, that's definitely two things I'm interested in seeing with Giovanni Bernard on, say, third downs. A crucial down for, any drive is his pass blocking ability against some of those more athletic guys like you talked about. But then also, I think what's going to be more interesting to me is having that safety blanket check down type option that, we all know that Giovanni Bernard can be. And, people used to call Tom Brady, the check down king, whatever you want to call him, right? But I mean, it's a legitimate thing. If the yards are there, the opportunities are there, why not take advantage of that, right? So I feel like that is where, Giovanni Bernard will be used a lot. And I'm going to be curious to see specifically how much Byron Leftwich kind of throws that in there with his play calling, where, hey, if there's nothing available, just check it down to Giovanni Bernard or something along those lines. I'm going to be very curious to see how that works. Maybe throw a couple of running back screens. We saw last year and mixed results with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette to be nice. And now it's going to add another dynamic, right? It's going to add a whole nother element to this offense. It's going to add more protection for Tom Brady as well, because Giovanni Bernard has been working a lot on his pass blocking. So that's going to be the more interesting notes to me. A lot of like what you said. What can he do as a receiving back? What can he do as a pass blocker against a blitzing linebacker or something along those lines? An extra guy. That could make him a very crucial guy in this game, depending on how often the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get to a third down situation. So he will be a guy, like you said, you only see him in certain types of situations, but when he's out there, definitely pay attention, because that's going to be one where you're going to go, ooh, what's going to happen here? Because you never know if a check down happens. You never know if Giovanni Bernard picks up an extra blitzer. That could be a big difference in a play. So let's just kind of keep an eye on him. The second to last player I have here, Evan, that we all should be keeping an eye on is the only rookie in this group. And I thought about a couple of guys. Really, I only thought of two guys, but I opted for the guy on the defensive side of the football. It is Joe Tryon. Looked great throughout this entire process leading up to this week 1 game here, Evan. What are your thoughts about Tryon getting his first regular season action after impressing so stinking much leading up to this point?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see just how much Tryon plays, because obviously we've talked about everybody really much has talked about it a bunch of the formations that they could do on third downs. I think you would see him just like Giovanni Bernard. You'd see him exclusively on third downs. I think you would see Joe Tryon pretty much only on third downs. I think they legit just want to use him as that extra guy, that extra edge that can make a difference. And it'll be interesting to see how much they run that formation where you kick Jason Pierre-Paul inside, sort of have his hand in the dirt, and have Joe Tryon and Shaq Barrett as your two rushers standing up. I'm going to be very interested to see how much they run that. We didn't see that a ton in the preseason, but Joe Tryon really wasn't playing with the ones all that much in the preseason. So, also I want to see, speaking of the ones, I want to see Joe Tryon against the number one tackle. Right, we saw him be very good in the preseason and very impressive, but at the same time, that wasn't against any starting tackle. So this time, you're going to be able to see him against the real guys, the guys that are going to be playing every Sunday, and it'll be very fun to see. I think you will see him. I'm not sure how much. I think a lot of it obviously depends on situational. If the Cowboys have, are constantly controlling the play, and they have, if it's a third down, it's a third and short, I don't know if Tryon's really going to get in there to be a run defender. I think they would just like to stick with Ndamukong Suh and Will Golston in that situation. But if it's a third and long, I wouldn't be shocked to see Todd Bowles just send him out there, have JPP kick inside, and just try and let it rip.
Yeah, it will be an interesting situation. I kind of thought, like, oh, maybe they will play him and run down opportunities, whatever it may be. But I mean, Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul, I think, do a good job in terms of aiding in that run defense, right? The Buccaneers front seven has been one of the top run defenses, in the league for the past couple of years. So I don't think Joe Tryon, it's not like he needs to be out there, right? He's more of a luxury guy to be out there, just seeing what the young guy can do out there. I think he will rotate in, though, maybe on early downs if Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul are tired, and they need to come out of the game. Of course, neither one of those guys want to come out of the game, right? But, at the end of the day, they might have to in certain situations. Third downs, like you said. Just to clarify for everybody watching the video, in terms of that formation you mentioned where Jason Pierre-Paul gets on the inside, what would that formation look like in terms of the front seven?
Yeah, so basically it would just be how the normal front seven is with Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul standing up as your rushers, and you have Vita Vea inside with Ndamukong Suh and Will Golston inside. Here, it would be essentially the same thing, but you're taking either Golston or Suh out. You're taking one of those players out, and you're replacing them with JPP. So JPP is going to have his hand in the dirt like a normal 4-3 defensive end would, and then Joe Tryon would be beside him, standing up rushing. So that's the only difference. You would be probably removing, I would guess, Will Golston, because Sue's a better pass rusher than Golston. So on like a third and long, you'd probably pick out Will Golston, put Jason Pierre-Paul in Golston's spot, and then just have Tryon rush from the outside.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying there. Just to kind of get as many good pass rushers out there, essentially, just to attack as much as you can. Yeah, that would definitely be one dangerous situations for opposing quarterbacks, and it would be a very interesting formation, like you said, to see all those guys out there all working in unison. I mean, that's top four of the top defenders out there with Suh, Barrett, JPP, and Vita Vea, and then you add the young, exciting rookie in Joe Tryon. That could be a dangerous formation that they use a lot depending on the circumstances. So I agree with what you said there. Him going up against number one guys, I think, is going to be a very important thing to pay attention to, because we've seen guys where, hey, they look great against the backups, but then as soon as they go up against the number ones, they struggle a little bit. I don't believe that'll be the case with Joe Tryon, but it's still going to be worth paying attention to. And I have to point this out. I think we had talked about it a little bit. Was it Louis Riddick who said on social media that he said, man, the Bucs really are going to get a top 10 value here with Joe Tryon? I believe it was, correct? Yeah, so it's just adding more fuel to the Joe Tryon train, right? So, I'm excited for the young rookie. Like you said, he's going to get his moments. He's going to get his packages and his opportunities. So let's see what he does against some of those number ones. The Cowboys have a few offensive linemen missing. Zach Martin just, came out that he's not going to be in that game. There's a couple of backup O-linemen that are going to be on the shelf as well. Vita Vea is going to benefit from it. That's 100%, I think a thing there. And maybe Joe Tryon can as well. And speaking of Vita Vea, Evan, he is actually the last player that I have us needing to pay attention to going into this upcoming game. Look, we all know how great Vita Vea is. I think he's a top 5 player on this team. I don't think that is a crazy thing to say. Zach Martin's not going to be there. Conor Mcgovern will be in his place. He is healthy. We saw him when he was just a little bit healthy in the championship game and in the Super Bowl. Good Lord. What do you think about Vita Vea going into this game and potentially wrecking some havoc with those situations going along the Cowboys' offensive line?
Yeah, I think if we would have done this video yesterday, it might have been a bit different, and maybe we don't put Vita Vea on this list. But Conor Mcgovern is a guy who isn't a scrub. He's not a complete, liability. However, he has starting experience. He's been a starter before, but he's not Zach Martin. And that's the big difference. Zach Martin is legit a top 5, probably when healthy, a top 5 guard in the NFL, and that's a huge loss. So it's definitely going to be something that Dallas feels, and something that the Bucs are well equipped to take advantage of, and I think will take advantage of. With Vita Vea, with Ndamukong Suh, with Will Golston. Typically, I believe John Ledyard had pointed this out that Zach Martin is on the right side, whereas Vita Vea mostly rushed from the left side. But maybe the scheme wise, maybe game planning wise, Todd Bowles just switches it. Who knows? The guard that Vita Vea would be going up against, if he would stay on his side, would be Connor Williams, who isn't great. So either way, I think you're getting a matchup advantage there. But also, now you got to think that formation that I talked about with kicking Jason Pierre-Paul inside. How is a guy like Conor McGovern going to be able to contain Jason Pierre-Paul? So that's something you also got to think about. But dating it back to the Vita Vea, it's just so tough because the guy is so big and he's so hard to move, and he just clogs two holes, right? He's one guy that clogs two holes, and in turn that opens up other lanes for other rushers. And that's why, when he went down, you sort of saw the defense kind of hit a little bit of a rut, because especially pass rush wise, because he just does so much. While he may not get the sack numbers, he's contributing to a lot of those sacks and not even touching the quarterback. He's just taking up space and taking up bodies. And I think that's exactly what he's going to do on Thursday night.
Yeah, I had to mention Vita Vea in this video too, because I feel like we're just going to be mentioning him every week. Like, this is the campaign for me. This season is just appreciate Vita Vea year, in my opinion. If he is able to stay healthy, knock on wood for that. But he's great. We all know how great he is. I don't think it's a stretch to say he's probably a top 5 defensive tackle in the league when fully healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's an absolute beast. He's been able to develop his pass rushing skills. He's always been phenomenal in the run game. We all know this. And exactly like what you said, we saw it last year, even when he was just a little bit healthy. When he came back from, his, bad ankle injury in miraculous time, the pass rush very much benefited. Like, it was night and day, the difference between when Vita Vea wasn't there and when he was there. And that's not a knock on guys like Steve McClendon and Raheem Nunez-Roches. They're just not Vita Vea, point blank. It's such a different breed. It's such a different... There's a gap there, right? And it's definitely going to be a big thing in this game. Like you said, Todd Bowles moving around that situation to give Vita Vea the best matchup possible is for sure a possibility. That formation you mentioned, with Jason Pierre-Paul being inside, having as many pass rushers out there, that could be a pretty, potential regular formation in passing down situations, just to exploit that, to exploit those, I don't want to say weaknesses, but those situations and those circumstances along that Cowboys offensive line. I can't remember who said it. It may have been Chandler Jones. It may have been somebody else, but I remember somebody had mentioned where edge rushers love going up against guards, especially backup guards, due to the lack of athleticism and things along those lines. It has, edge rushers salivating. So could you imagine Jason Pierre-Paul being able to move inside, going up against a backup guard, potentially all day? That'd be like the best day of his life, potentially, in terms of just potential win rate, right? Possibilities there. So we'll see what happens with that. Like you said, Vita Vea being there, he's a game changer. By pure definition, he's a game changer. He's a game wrecker, and he is such a huge benefit to the defense. And, we're going to start to see that here versus the Cowboys now that they've had a little bit of a banged up offensive line with Zach Martin being out. Like you said, I think it's a huge blow to that line, and we'll see what the Buccaneers do to take advantage of that. But, guys, what do you think about all these players that we mentioned? Let us know down in the comment section down below. Evan, I thank you again for joining me on this video. And before we go ahead and sign off, do you have any final words?
Let's go check out Cannon Fire Podcast, the YouTube channel, anywhere you can listen to it, anywhere you can find a podcast. And also, we have our Cannon Fire Watch Party coming up on November 14th versus Washington. The Bucs are traveling to Washington, and we're going to sit around and watch it. So it's going to be at Barry House, and also our friends at Wingbox are also sponsoring it as well. So it should be fun.
There you go. And I will have that link down in the comment section down below. Go subscribe to them, guys. We're trying to get them to 3,000 subscribers. Let's get the ball rolling on that. We're getting there. we're getting there. So let's get them up to 3,000. They're going to be doing something super special for that, so you'll have to stay tuned for that. But anyway, guys, again, let us know your thoughts about that down in the comments section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. And as always, guys, we'll see you in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.